in the ring for the fight of my life. Hit my knees and I strap on my gloves. Boy, I've been prepping since like I was 7. And thing is, I'm already covered in blood. I put my hand on the Bible, the Lord is my witness. That KB is closer than blood. I got that HGA tatted right next to my heart, so you know it's gonna always be love. Don't need no.
So we'll start here. We'll start at verse 1. Chapter 1, verse 1. It says, "These are the names of the son of Israel who went to Egypt with Jacob, each with his family: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The descendants of Jacob numbered 70 in all, and Joseph was already in Egypt. Now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died. But the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. They multiplied greatly, increased in numbers, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. Then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous, and if war breaks out, they will join our enemies and fight against us and leave the country." So essentially, and we talked about this when we were in Genesis, at the very end of Genesis, we talked about the evidence of the Exodus. Okay? Now, you would think that there would be a lot of actual written evidence for the Exodus. There's really not. There is a lot of written evidence for them coming to the land. We actually have hieroglyphs that are on walls that depict what we now know to be about 70 foreign people coming into the land of Egypt. And that shows them coming in. So why don't we see a whole lot of stuff and everything about them exiting the land? Well, I can't say for sure. I'm not the one writing the history, but I would have to say the way they exited the land kind of put a black eye on Egypt in and of itself and the Pharaoh. They probably just kind of wanted to write that part of history out. So that would be a guess. But what's going on here is all of that generation has died. Okay? But the Hebrews have gone farther and farther and farther into this to where they're basically thousands of them at this point. Okay? And after so many generations, now there is a new Pharaoh. There is a new Pharaoh in the land, and he doesn't care about Joseph. He doesn't care about what he did. He doesn't care about anything at all that happened in the past. He cares about what's going on now. And what he sees right now is a really big security risk. Because if anybody ever comes to invade Egypt, here are all these Hebrews, thousands of them. And if they come along and the Hebrews look at this situation and they're like, well, these people are clearly going to defeat Egypt, they're concerned that all these Hebrews are going to be like, yeah, we're kind of living here, but we're not actually of these people. So is it okay if we come with you and, we'll kick their butt and we'll take the land and everything will be good? So it's a huge security risk. Later on down the line, when the Exodus is actually taking place, you would think that they would just go straight into the land of Canaan. But they don't. And the reason why they don't is because they have to go through other people's land. And they're saying, hey, listen, we're trying to get over there. We want to take our 2 million people at this point, and we want to go ahead and go through your land, and we want to get to where we're going over there. And the kings of these lands are going, yeah, you're not bringing 2 million people on my land. This is going to go very bad very quick. You're here to invade us. It's very obvious. You're here under a ruse. So nobody will allow them to come onto their land. So eventually, they just go out into the Sinai, and they stay there. Now, there's a reason why they're there for 40 years, and it's not because men don't know how to follow instructions. But there is a reason why they're there for 40 years. And it's not necessarily just that reason, but we'll get to that when it gets to that part. That'll be a few classes later. But that's what's going on here. So the king is looking at this as a security risk. So it says, they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They made their lives bitter with harsh labor, in brick and mortar with all kinds in the fields, and all their harsh labor the Egyptians worked them ruthlessly. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Siphrah and Puah, when you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, if you see that a baby is a boy, kill him. But if it's a girl, let her live. The midwives, however, feared God, and they did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live? And the midwives answered Pharaoh, Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives even arrive. Not exactly sure how to take that. But so God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. And then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people. Every Hebrew boy that is born must be thrown into the Nile, but let every girl live. So why? Well, basically because boys grow up to be soldiers. He wants all the boys killed so that way, even though the Hebrews are multiplying, well, he can use the women. The women can be slaves. But the men, they need to go because they're a danger, they're a threat. So at the end of the day, this is his answer to the problem. Now, I wrote in your guys' notes, I talked about these two midwives and everything. These are actually Hebrew women. These are not Egyptian women. So he's bringing in Hebrew women to be midwives for the Hebrews, and the Hebrew women are like, yeah, we're not doing this. We follow God. We don't follow you first. So God rewards that. Now, we're going to get into Moses. And again, this is going to go very quickly. But I'm going to slow this down a little bit because one thing that I really want to do while I'm teaching Exodus, well, really any book in the Bible, but one thing I really want to do in this is I want to give this story context. Because there's a lot going on here that a lot of people get really mixed up.